Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Greg. How's it going?
Good. It's going great. Nice to see you.
Good, good. So today I think we're going to talk about scaling your leadership career.
We are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to cue this up because I want to,
Okay.
given the things that you've done, I think your insight in this, I'm really interested to hear. So when I work with leaders developmentally,
hmm
learning to scale themselves is always the thing people struggle with the most, which is,
hmm
you had a job where you were responsible for producing 100 widgets a day and you were really good at it. Then you get promoted and now you
hmm
manage five people that also produce 100 widgets a day. And that feels like you're now responsible for 500 widgets a day, which I guess technically you are. But I watch new leaders work really long hours because they haven't learned
hmm
to scale. And I will say, in my experience, scaling and delegating is different.
hmm
But I'm interested in, from your perspective, how do you scale yourself as a leader as you've evolved?
Well, I will say I'm not perfect at this. And my team right now would tell you I'm not perfect at this. And it's been like 25 years of leadership. So it's still not perfect. But
Yeah.
what I've done over the years is I think when I first started in leadership, I was very downward focused. I was focused on what are my team members doing. I was definitely a micromanager and not in a like a mean aggressive kind of way, but in a like I'm the puppet master kind of way. You know,
Yeah.
and I spent a couple of roles being very much like that. And I think that that is kind of how people tend to start in leadership. And it's not the greatest, but it's also not the worst thing because I think you do sort of get your feet wet in terms of like how do you then lead a team? You learn what not to do. I wish everybody who was going into people leadership had access to really high quality leadership training because I think that would prevent a lot of that, but we don't. Like most companies don't invest in that. And so you just do what you do your job and you do everybody else's job and you kind of help them with it. And
Yeah.
you're hopeful that they can like kind of grab it and run. And then
Yeah.
basically then you take those people that can grab it and run and ignore them and like focus on the ones that can't. And like that's not scalable.
No,
Like,
it's not.
so that is not at all scalable. I think the role where I really learned to scale myself as a leader was when I worked at Vertical Response. And I started at that company as the VP of customer success,
Mhm.
or sorry, VP of sales, doing the sales function only. And so I led a small team of salespeople there. And that team was like six people, I think, at first. And so we just went after like, that was a company that was an email marketing company. And they had like 50,000 customers, and there was this tiny sliver of customers that were large that we could sell to that would be of a scale that it was worth having a sales team go after. So that was where my team was focused. And then about like less than a year in, I the support team was having such bad problems they that I had to have a conversation with the head of support because he was like stretched really thin and he hadn't done a good job of positioning how valuable his team was to our whole client base because he was not covering the tiny sliver. He was covering all 50,000 active
Wow.
customers
Good
with
luck.
a team of like less than 20 people. And it was not scaling well and it was reflecting really badly on my team as we were trying to be out there selling. And so I
Yeah.
was like, hey, dude, like, what can we do? Can I help you? And I helped him kind of reposition the team. Ultimately, I ended up taking over that team too. So then I've got a team of
Hmm.
like 25 people, and I haven't 26, 25, 26 people, and I haven't ever run a support team before.
Right.
So I had to learn to run a support. I mean, it
Yeah.
interacted with support teams before, but I'd never run one. So I had to learn, how do you run a support team? Okay. So I spent a lot of time that year ignoring my salespeople who were kind of off and running at
Sure.
that point and focusing on support. And then I ended up inheriting. an account management team that turned into a customer success team and a business development team. And there was a lot of like, I ended up with a team of like over 40 people with
Wow.
12 leaders to support those people.
Mhm.
And we restructured the group. And that was the team where I learned that while it's really nice to know and have done the work of the people who you're leading,
Sure.
you don't have to. You
Yeah.
just have to have some empathy and understanding of what they do. You don't have to have lived it.
Yes.
Because if you had to have lived every role that you led, no one would ever be a CEO.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So, like, if you want to go, and I did at the time want to go to the highest levels of leadership,
Mhm.
you have to be okay with, at a certain point, leading people whose job you've never done.
Yeah.
And you have to have enough common sense and intelligence and empathy to understand and strategy to understand how to move those teams without having done the work.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be in that place. And it took me a while to feel comfortable with it, but after that role, I really felt comfortable with it. And then I stopped feeling uncomfortable taking on teams that where I'd not done the job before.
Yeah.
And now I'm a CEO. So, and granted, I have a very small team, but still
So,
I
yeah.
do all the role of CEO, and it helps me to not feel uncomfortable diving into things I've never done before.
It's amazing. So I've also ended up inheriting teams who do things I didn't know how to do, and I wonder if
Hmm.
this is true for you. The learning that became the most useful for me in from
Hmm.
a scaling perspective is or was knowing what questions to ask
Yeah.
that got me to some version of how are things, right?
Hmm.
So like I couldn't ask a detailed down in the nits question for a group, when I was leading, say, a technical team.
Hmm.
But knowing what questions to ask was how I learned to scale myself. Was that
Yeah.
your experience as well?
It was. And I think what you learn, and this has been especially a big learning for me heading up a consulting firm, is that everything is a framework. And
Mm.
if you know the framework, you can manage the group
Oh,
because it's all a framework. There's a company goal that translates into a departmental goal that translates into actions for the team that
yep.
translates into what you're doing day to day. You have to have tools to support that. You have to have a journey for customers if you're in any kind of go-to-market team.
Sure.
And if you know all of that and you know how the tooling of that works,
Yeah.
you're good.
I
and
love
and then you just have to fit the team into the framework, and that might require, I'm like, definitely having led and worked in sales and marketing and customer success. I understand closely how all those teams differ from each other and how they fit into the framework.
yeah.
But if I was picking up a new team, I would just look at them in terms of the framework and fit them into the framework in their own unique way. And once you kind of get that, I think you can scale yourself.
Yeah. Say more about framework in this example.
Well,
What's included in a framework?
so in my opinion, I mean, like, it's kind of some of what I described. So the organization has goals, financial goals.
Yeah.
Companies exist to make money, unless you work for a nonprofit, and still you have to make
Even
some
they have to
money.
make money.
So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, so like, what are the financial goals of the company? What are the other goals of the company?
Mm.
Those go down to your goals as a department or a leader of a team, right? And so those then need to be translated into the activities that the team does to support those goals. If there's activities, there's tooling that needs to be there, maybe a CRM system or a CS platform or a support tool that support that activity. There are staffing levels that need to be there to support that activity.
Yep.
That
Yep.
translates into your budget.
Mhm.
So your budget is a part of the framework.
Yeah.
You need to have training to train people. You need to understand at what rate for different teams people turn over so that you
Mhm.
can plan for when you're going to need to hire people and like the training that they're going to need to have and how long that's going to take. You can think about, I mean, it all, like, I don't know if that answers your question,
It
but it's
does.
kind of a math problem
Yeah. Well, I'll
at a
tell you.
certain point.
It absolutely answers my question, and here's why. So the way I have thought of it, I'm going to tell you how I've thought of it and why I
Hmm.
think your framework example is better. So I tend to think in kind of a linear way, not unlike what you were saying, which is there's an
Hmm.
outcome from a scalability perspective, right? Which is kind of where we are. There's an outcome. Maybe
Hmm.
it's a revenue outcome or a
Hmm.
cost reduction outcome, either way. And then you back up from that and you say, if it's a revenue outcome, it's, revenue against these products, and you
Hmm.
back up from that, and that's got a reliance here. So from a scalability perspective as a leader, I get to find out the question I'm going to ask about each
Hmm.
step in that linear progression. And,
Yeah.
and that lets me know what's there. But what I like about your description of a framework is the inclusion of tooling, the inclusion
Hmm.
of staffing, and then the
Hmm.
relationship of both of those things to budget. And
Hmm.
so all of those pieces, then it does actually start feeling like a frame, because unless all those pieces fit together in the right way, then I don't even have to ask the question about the linear progression, because if we're staffed to have 10 people doing a job and we only have five
Yeah.
doing it, then there's no reason to start digging around into, are we going to meet our numbers, because we're not. So the frame,
Yeah.
I like the frame example because it really makes me think of all those interconnected pieces that are so important.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing that you have to layer from my perspective, and like there's a like that's a very math problem. Like there's a big human element too to this. And so, when you're taking over a new team, you have to kind of get the feel of the people on the team. So there's the human side of it too. And then that kind of is almost like a matrix that sits over the top of the frame. So it gets kind of complicated, but
Yeah.
that then becomes like, okay, you're going to have people, especially if you inherit a team, you're going to have A players, you're going to have B players, you might have C players. You're probably going to have some people that you have to get rid of. And you kind of need to quickly figure that out. And then as you go, some of your A players are going to get tired and they're going to like maybe drop down a little.
Right.
Some of your some of your new people are going to rise into their spots.
Mhm.
You're going to, I think there's this kind of idea out there, and I hate it because it's not realistic that, oh, if you're only a good enough boss, everyone will want to stick around forever. Well, I'm going to tell you what, like you don't want everyone to stick around
No,
forever. Like
no,
no, like our whole culture is not built around on people sticking around in their jobs forever.
no.
So and it's not good for them, and it's not good for you, and it's not good for your team. And if it's a
Yeah.
technical product especially, people are going to get sick of it. They're going to get sick of answering the same questions over and over and over again. That's reality. So you have to plan for
Yep.
some turnover.
Kind of turnover.
and
Yeah.
and
And
at best, the coolest thing you could do is like get them to move to another position in the company and like go do that so you don't lose them
yeah,
entirely.
yeah.
But you're going to lose people, and that's not a dig at you as a
Mhm.
leader.
That's a
That's
really great point.
you being smart and planning for it.
And part of what I'm taking from that, and you're right, whenever I think of new leaders coming in, it's been true of me as well. There's this belief that if you're a new leader coming in, the best thing you can do is keep everyone in their place and keep them all happy.
Oh, and your team is all going to love you.
Right. And it just doesn't work. Like every new
No.
leader brings new leadership style, a new dynamic. Like that
Yeah.
sometimes just that's the cue that some people take to go ahead and search for something new. And so there's so many examples of either a leader that I've been coaching and supporting or myself
Yeah.
where you go in thinking like, all right, everything's stable, this is going to be great, and then within 3 months you have, half of your team is gone, you're having to rebuild. That's part of the package.
Yeah, I mean, back to our gaming episode, like if you think about that, like what you should be doing, I think, as a leader, if you're planning to scale, is constantly be playing chess in your head about where do these people go? Like,
Yes.
okay, if I lose a leader, who
Yeah.
have I got that could move into their
Right.
spot?
Yep.
If I lose a frontline person, do I have a bench of people that I could pull from?
Yeah.
Is my HR person working with me to build a bench? If not, how can I get out there and be networking more to try to come up with some people that could fill that role? Like the chess you need to be playing in your head, because it will happen. And if you're not playing that game in your head, you will not be ready for it.
That's
And
right.
it will catch you off guard every time.
Yeah.
And if you have a decent sized team, like I mean, like I didn't even have that big of a team. I think at my biggest, my team was like 45 people.
Mm,
Like at that size, that's not even that big of a team.
mm.
That I lost a person probably at least once a month from
Yeah.
that team
Yeah.
off of support and sales and service. And people went on maternity leave and paternity leave. And like people are coming and going all the time. And if
Right.
you think your team is going to stay stable when it's that size, like you're crazy. Even if it's like half that size, that's going to change constantly.
It
People
is.
have lives. And so you have to play it out in your head and plan for it. And if you do that, and if you kind of have not only your own growth trajectory in mind, but the growth of your growth path for your team, you're ready for it.
Yeah.
And then it's more like boop, boop, move that
Yeah.
piece instead of, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend 4 months recruiting and then my team's going to be underwater. And like, like you don't have to live like that.
You don't. And I really like your description of that as a chess game because it starts getting you into the thinking of like planning your next move and
hmm
planning like all of your characters, like where they can go next and
hmm
and what you're gonna do if they do. So
Yeah, I mean, like it's succession planning, really, is what it is. But
like
like,
3D succession planning.
yeah, kind of. And then that all has to fit into your like model for your, your framework for your program, right,
Right.
that you're running. So like it is a lot to think about. And sometimes people, I think another thing that keeps people from being scalable, and I'd love your take on this, is like they want to still be doing the work. And I think if you're doing leadership right, you do not have time for that.
You don't. Yeah, you
And
have
so
to.
like, what's your take?
My take is exactly that. So whatever, what got you here won't get you there, right? So
Yeah.
you were really good at a job and then you got into a
hmm
leadership role. And if you loved that work and you missed
hmm
that work, give up your leadership role and go back to being an individual contributor.
Yeah.
Because the job becomes different when you're a leader and you have to manage it differently. And so it's fine to miss the front line or miss, like
hmm
the activity. I worked in restaurants for a long time and
Yeah.
I was a waiter. I had opportunities to be a restaurant manager, but I didn't ever want to do that part of restaurant work. I liked being in front of customers
Yeah.
and all that. So my take on that is the same as yours, which is if you are moving up as a leader, you are leaving behind that work. You're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to let go of that and you have to embrace the other parts of being a leader and find your challenges and find
Mhm.
your excitement in those things because that's what you do now. And I was talking to somebody about
And
this.
it's so fun.
It
Like
is
once
very
you get
fun.
into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we have to wrap up, so I think this is maybe a place to wrap up. I was talking to somebody about this. I had a coaching client a few years ago who had been in a technical role and had excelled in their technical role and then got a team of people, which is what happens,
Mhm.
and were bad at people management.
Yeah.
So I was asked to be a mentor for this person. So I was, and we were meeting weekly,
Yeah.
going great. And after about a month, they said to me, like in this tone of just discovery and wonder, like, wait a minute, managing people is kind of its own skill, isn't it? And I was like, you are adorable. I didn't say that out loud. I said, yes,
So
it,
cute.
it is its own skill. And currently you're bad at it. So we're going to keep working on this to get you good at
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So you leave behind whatever frontline thing you used
Yeah.
to do. And now the thing you learn to do
Is
is
leadership.
it's this 3D chess game that you just talked
Mhm.
about that becomes an important part of it. So
This was fun.
this is great. We're going to have more to say about this one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will end this
Okay.
for now and we'll come back to it.
Okay. Bye,
As
Greg.
always, bye, Kristen.